two, three. One, two, three. Let's go.
All right, everybody, welcome to an extremely special episode of Teaching Crypto. We got a very special guest along with MrFOMO, Obi-Wan. Obi, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, doing great. Thanks, guys.
So
Nice
we're
to
gonna
have one
we're
of these
gonna
meetings while it's still light outside.
yeah, we're gonna take advantage of having this Voyager superstar and ask him a ton of questions. And remember, guys, we are inching. I know we got delayed, but we're inching closer, hopefully, to resolution next month. Uh, Obi, the first question for you is. Um, Obviously we got delayed. For you, explain to the viewers out there why they shouldn't lose too much sleep over this delay, in your opinion.
Yeah, so the delay is actually, I view that as a good thing because if anybody's wondering what the delay is, there was a bid and auction process that was going to be, the bids were going to be final by the 26th of August. And then the auction process, if it were to take place, would have been the 29th of August with the final hearing on September 7th. That's been adjusted by a few weeks back. Now the bid process goes through September 6th. The auction would be the 13th, and then there'd be a hearing by the end of September, and then we'd vote on things by the 10th. So we're, in my mind, that's a good thing because that means that they're getting interest right now in the company and going through the bids, and it's a combined effort between the creditors committee, which is all the customers, and the company itself. So they're hearing bids from interested parties. They're doing a little back and forth on comparing notes on valuations. The creditors committee has legal counsel and financial advisors, so does the company, as do any of the bidders. So it's a sealed process where the bidders aren't talking to one another. There's very strict guidelines on what can be followed that people need to follow, because they had a couple PR stunts, as I'll call them, early in the process, and the court's like, no, you need to follow the process to get the estate the most as possible. And this is a sign that they need more time to extract as much value and figure out what the best path forward is for customers. And the customers are the priority here. It's not the company. It could be a situation where the company lives on. It could be a situation where the customers get moved to another platform. And so it's at this point, we're just going to wait patiently till we know.
Yeah, we sat in on that town hall meeting with the customer group there and the committee, and they were sharp, man. They didn't miss a beat. They were on top of everything. I mean, they even said that they were running parallel investigations to what was going on internally. I was really impressed with that group, and I really thought the world of that town hall meeting, and I really appreciated them doing that. But to me, that sent a great signal to me as a customer anyway.
Yeah, MWE is an outstanding firm with a track record of Chapter 11 cases, and they've got a good financial advisor too. But I always blank on the name. but the people that know what they're doing, they're well represented. Even in the most recent move, where Voyager had a key employee retention program in place to keep the top 38 employees, to make sure that legal, communications, the staking and unstaking, transfer of assets, platform stability, all that kind of stuff that goes into keeping the lights on and making sure the platform works. They have to make sure that they retain those employees. So the UCC said, hey, it's a little light on the details. Could you elaborate on how much money's being spent and why? And then that forced Voyager to kind of provide some additional color to what the program was, which is totally common in any kind of company when you do a merger and acquisition. And usually the people that are being acquired, or in this case, at Chapter 11, they get a little antsy, right? As any employee of a company that is in distress would be. And, it's not uncommon to get offered a retention bonus to put people at ease, to say, hey, if you see this through, we'll reward you for it. And especially those employees that are designated as key, typically that's part of the value that's being acquired. So it makes the value of the company go up if they can say, hey, we've got 328 people, but we could get by skeleton crew with a crew of less than 40, and at least be able to maintain the business at the size it's at now. We're just going to need a little bit more employees if we want to, proceed further and launch new products like they had intended to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about that, because that's something that I saw kind of come across the wire earlier today, and it made me a little bit salty when I saw it. But to hear you talk about it and to hear, that those key employees are a major part of the valuation of the company, that's a big deal. And so the headline kind of appears as FUD. It's almost like, God, they're paying Steve 1.6, but that's not really the case. They're protecting the value of the company by paying these employees, and I think that's really what matters there. And I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm glad that you touched on that, because that's a huge point.
Yeah, I mean, customers are way to make what make a business, but there's no relationship with a business if there aren't employees managing the customers and making the business successful. So you have to you have to make sure that the most important elements in these types of situations are always the customers and the employees. The executives and the other staff that they're important, but they're not like the people that are necessarily always retained when there's an acquisition. It's usually those key contributors are the ones that get priority, and that all goes into the valuation. Like, you were able to grow the company how much with how many people? Like, it's a kind of a big deal to be able to run a tight ship. And there's a handful of companies out there in crypto that haven't been doing layoffs, right? Binance, FTX, and Voyager, mainly the top three, and they were working pretty light in terms of staff and even contractors bringing in outside help, with consultants. And so, that you can't say the same for, Genesis and BlockFi and Celsius. And,
Right.
the list is long when it comes to crypto layoffs. So, yeah, that absolutely is part of the valuation.
And I think that's important too, because for me, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but for me, the Voyager platform was head and shoulders above the other platforms as far as the ones that I was able to look at and use and kind of play around with. I preferred that one by far.
Yeah, there's quite a few people out there in Voyager withdrawals right now when it comes to their crypto, because it was the best UI UX in all of crypto. I mean, it's so easy. I always do my litmus test, for easy technology is always my mom. So if my mom can run, she hates it when I say that, but it's true. If my mom can use technology in an app, it's simple. So
That's the truth. And
yeah.
that it was just a beautiful app, and I hope it comes back in that form and all that glory that it used to have, because if you see me itching my neck, that's me going through the withdrawals.
Obi, I want to switch topics just a little bit and talk about VGX, because a lot of people watching this still hold a lot of VGX, and most of us still have it trapped on the platform. I know we've heard people say, it doesn't look great, but let's try to be positive for a moment. Let's get some hopium in here. I mean, this is best case scenario, so we're not saying this is going to happen. We want to be realistic for our viewers, but for you, what is the best case realistic scenario for VGX over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so I'll throw out the disclaimers of not financial advice, entertainment purposes only.
Of course, only entertainment purposes. Yes.
Yeah. So VGX, we always have to keep in mind what that is. So that was the token that unlocked rewards and utility for the Voyager loyalty program. There was, prior to the Chapter 11 situation, they had just started a phased rollout of the VLP 2.0, and that was going to expand the tiers of customer benefits. It was going to add the token into more utility for some of the future products that were coming out. There's going to be a way to spend it and get unique items. So they were giving us a reason to want to own VGX, and that was always the thing that held it back in terms of its price action. Is whenever Voyager or the VGX token did well, it did well because people were excited about what they could do with it and what that meant in terms of passive income or unlocking rewards of the platform. So right now we're stuck in the situation where the platform is likely not going to reopen until first quarter of next year. And so it's a token that's at its very root is a utility token, but right now there's no utility because the app and platform aren't functioning. So unfortunately, it's one of those scenarios where it's like if your primary function is utility and you can't use the utility, it doesn't, you're not, it's the price action's kind of sitting there. And right now we have 169 million tokens, which is about 60% of the supply on the Voyager app. So there's still, another 130 million tokens out there in self-custody and on exchanges. But as you can see by the price action, it's not really moving very much because there's not a lot of supply and demand out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I just want to do a quick follow-up really quickly here. We had that volatility, but that was mostly, fake Twitter stuff that was happening that got it to $1. And again, this is not financial advice. I tell me if I'm wrong. I do think we're going to see some movement between, and again, this is not financial advice, between the auction and the confirmation day and the way bids are due, just because I think it's going to be in the news. Voyager will be. So I think people always try to take advantage of that. So I do think there's going to be some volume. Obviously, it's not going to be something where we're not going to get the token up to 2 and hold it. But do you see some volatility coming over the next 3 weeks?
yeah, because the market likes to ping off of the news, and when the market is really kind of boring as it is right now in what people call crypto winter. I don't know if we're fully there, but it's certainly pretty sluggish. But what happens in this scenario is you get into the news cycle, people start reading about it, they start thinking, maybe it gets on the Reddit boards or the stock twits, and people are like, ooh, here's an opportunity to, there's low liquidity, there's only 40% of the supply, and the books at such and such place are low, and we can game it, and it gets a little bit of traction, right? A little bit of trading action. As well as when people talk about it on social media, there are quantitative bots out there, skimming and aggregating keywords and data, and whether it's, bullish or bearish sentiment. And those bots will trade both sides of the order book. So you'll get some action based off of, may not even people, but there will be, because it's in the news cycle, some volume that's generated off of that, trying to get volatility to then, make some money off the
I
volatility.
got one more VGX question for you because like a lot of us, it's me especially, so hold a ton of VGX. Do you think, let's play the scenario out and we get a new buyer and we get new leadership. Do you think, and again, this is just your opinion, not financial advice, do you think those people are going to see the value in having a utility token to use? And therefore, do you think they would come up with a plan like Steve did for VLP and VOPO 2.0?
Yeah, it's really going to depend on the buyer and what assets they're valuing and what they want to do with it. If it's somebody who doesn't already have a platform and is looking to get into crypto, it's going to be extremely valuable because it's one of those things that cuts down on your expense to acquire and retain customers, because it's
Great
profit
point.
neutral, but it's expense savings that you would otherwise have to spend out of your treasury. So it's in that way a very good asset for a brokerage or a business that's looking to get into crypto to acquire. There are other potential suitors that perhaps wouldn't place a lot of value on the token in the program because maybe they don't have that in their designs. So the most bullish situation for the VGX token and the VLP would actually be Voyager getting financed and continuing on as a company and getting that VLP out there, because that VLP 2.0, I had some models, and looking at the data, those models were spot on, in terms of the breakdown of customers and the utility. A lot of that stuff was planned. Now again, the price action always comes down to supply and demand, but if you can get the program up and running and show people the benefits and get the word out there, which was the big thing that it was lacking, is awareness, then yeah, of course it can move, because it's not a very large supply. And once people get the level of the membership tier that they were looking for, it's very unlikely that they trade out of that position. So it had a form of non-staked stickiness that helped protect the price action in terms of the supply. So and I can even, if you want, I don't know how much time we have, but there is the data broken down on a site where you can kind of get an idea of what the splits were. But it was very close. Basically, in a nutshell, it was exactly kind of like what we had thought, that 96% or more of your customers were in that below Explorer tier. The average tokens held were 561 tokens per funded account. And then you had 0.5% of your customers were the Pioneer Plus tier. So if you were Pioneer Plus tier, you were in the top half of the top 1%.
Yeah, I sort of like you were saying, stacking those cheap sats. That's sort of the way I was playing it. Like you said, it had that stickiness. I was able to get to 500, and then I was playing the excess when I could to sort of, increase that bag. Unfortunately, I got stuck with a bunch of it, but like you said, the utility was there. That's something we always preach on this channel, and really that was one that we had high hopes for. And after all those collapses, to see Voyager go into bankruptcy and the utility lost, at least for now, was pretty frustrating. But it's nice to hear that there might at least still be some hope for that token.
I hope so. I mean, I really like the platform, and I really like what they were heading. Where they were heading was a rewards program that was really unrivaled. And the questions come down to, how is it sustainable, and how do you diversify the revenue while mitigating the risk in order to make that successful going forward? But it was, even if it came out that, hey, we're still going to move forward with this as a restructured company, and the VLPs and the cards, and maybe we have to reduce rewards to reduce lending risk, I think a lot of the customers would still be even on board with that. So I wouldn't say that it's dead. It's distressed and it's in trouble, but it's by no means hope isn't fully lost on that one.
You heard it here. Don't give up just yet, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We got a few weeks left before the big dates coming up, and we're going to try to have Obi on again because we really enjoyed having him on here. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're inching closer to 500 subscribers, so if you could help us out, that'd be great. Please hit that like button for Mr. FOMO, for our special guest Obi. Have a great night, everybody.